Ferrari's Austrian Grand Prix did not end with smoke, fire, or a dramatic engine failure. It ended with something far more dangerous. Lewis Hamilton's car kept running, but the performance disappeared, lap after lap, straight after straight, until the Ferrari that started close to the podium suddenly looked trapped by a weakness no driver can hide forever. And after the race, the most uncomfortable truth became impossible to ignore. This was not just bad strategy. This was not just tire degradation. This was not just another Ferrari weekend ruined by pressure. Because the real problem may be buried deep inside the car Hamilton trusted to fight for a championship, and the engineer drama around his side of the garage has now exposed a question Ferrari never wanted fans to ask. Did Hamilton join Ferrari at the exact moment the team built a car fast enough to give him hope, but flawed enough to take the title away? Subscribe to the channel. At first, Ferrari wanted everyone to see Austria as a normal racing disappointment. A difficult second half, a car that lost pace, a result that hurt, but did not destroy the season. That is the safe version of the story. But safe versions rarely tell the truth. Because Hamilton's Austrian Grand Prix was not strange because he finished fifth. It was strange because of how he got there. He was not miles away from a fight at the beginning. He was not invisible. He was not driving a car that looked hopeless from the first lap. That is what makes this so dangerous for Ferrari. The car gave just enough hope to make the collapse feel personal. Hamilton qualified near the front, close enough for Ferrari fans to believe the podium was realistic, close enough for Mercedes and Red Bull to know they could not ignore him. And for a while, the dream looked alive. The red car had presence. Hamilton had enough grip to stay in the conversation. The race had tension. Ferrari could still tell itself that the problems from earlier weekends were under control. But then the pattern returned. Not all at once. That would have been easier to explain. It came slowly. A little less pull on the straight, a little less threat in the attack, a little more pressure from the cars around him. And suddenly, Hamilton was no longer hunting. He was calculating. That is the moment every driver hates. Because when a champion starts calculating instead of attacking, it usually means the car has stopped giving him permission. And that is exactly where Austria became more than a race. It became a warning. Ferrari had already shown flashes of real speed earlier in the season. That is the uncomfortable part. This is not a completely lost car. If it were, the story would be simple. Fans would lower expectations. Hamilton would speak about rebuilding. The team would focus on long-term development. But Ferrari has already shown it can produce moments of genuine threat. That makes everything harder. Because a slow car kills hope quickly. A nearly fast car tortures everyone. It gives Hamilton enough performance to believe. It gives Ferrari enough evidence to defend the project. It gives the fans enough reason to dream. And then, on a circuit like Austria, it exposes the truth again. The problem is not that Ferrari has no speed. The problem is that Ferrari may not have the right kind of speed at the right time in the right places. And in Formula One, that difference is brutal. A car can look good through corners, feel stable under braking, and still be helpless when it reaches the end of a straight. A driver can do everything right, hit the marks, manage the tires, protect the battery, follow the instructions, and still watch another car grow larger in the mirrors. That is not just frustrating. It is humiliating in a way only racing drivers understand. Because from the outside, people ask why he did not defend harder, why he did not attack sooner, why he let the race slip away. But inside the cockpit, the answer can be painfully simple. There was nothing left to use. And that is where Hamilton's Ferrari story becomes so tense. He did not join Ferrari to survive races. He joined Ferrari to fight for history. He joined knowing the pressure would be enormous, but also knowing that if it worked, it would become one of the most powerful stories Formula One has ever seen. The greatest British driver of his generation, wearing red, trying to bring Ferrari back to the summit. That is not just a sporting move. That is mythology. But mythology still needs machinery. Emotion does not create straight-line speed. History does not refill a battery at the end of a long straight. The badge on the car does not protect a driver when the energy deployment fades too early. And that is the part Ferrari cannot hide from. Austria made the gap between the dream and the machine feel painfully visible, because the result itself was not shocking enough to cause panic. Fifth place is not a disaster on paper. But Formula One is not only read on paper. It is felt in patterns. And the pattern was clear. Ferrari had enough to promise something, but not enough to finish the job. That is the most dangerous kind of weakness. It does not destroy you immediately. It convinces you the solution is close. Then it steals the result anyway. And for Hamilton, that creates a deeper problem than one bad afternoon. He knows what a championship car feels like when it has margin. He knows when a machine allows a driver to be creative, aggressive, and patient all at once. He also knows when a car is forcing compromises before the fight has even reached its most important moment. That is the hidden pressure behind every Ferrari radio message now. When the engineer speaks, Hamilton is not just hearing instructions. He is hearing the limit of the car translated into words. Manage this. Protect that. Use energy carefully. Think about the tires. Watch the gap. Those messages are normal in Formula One. But when the car is already struggling in the areas that decide the race, every normal instruction starts to sound like a warning. And that warning leads to the question Ferrari did not want Austria to create. Was this really a weekend where Ferrari underperformed, or was this the weekend that revealed the true ceiling of Hamilton's car? Because those are two completely different stories. Underperformance can be fixed with execution. A ceiling problem demands something much bigger. And that is why the next part of this drama matters so much. The answer does not begin with the final result. It begins with what Ferrari's power unit was doing before Austria ever happened. The power unit story is where Ferrari's Austrian Grand Prix starts to look less like a bad day and more like a warning that had been building for weeks. Because before Austria, there were already signs. Small signs. The kind of signs teams explain away when the results are still acceptable. The kind of signs fans argue about online, while the team insists everything is under control. But in Formula One, small signs do not stay small for long. They follow the car. They appear in different corners. They return on different circuits. And eventually, they arrive on a track where there is nowhere left to hide. That was Austria. The Red Bull Ring does not forgive a car that lacks punch in the wrong places. It looks simple from the outside, almost too short to expose deep problems. But that is the trap. Because Austria is a circuit built around acceleration, traction, braking, and power delivery. The lap is short, so every weakness repeats quickly. There is no long, flowing section where a driver can cover everything with rhythm. There is no place for a team to disguise a car that cannot release energy exactly when the driver needs it. And for Hamilton, that matters more than people think. Because a Formula One car is not just fast because of its engine. Is fast because the engine, the battery, the hybrid system, the cooling, the aerodynamics, and the tires all work together at exactly the right time. If one part is slightly off, the others start paying the price. That is where Ferrari's problem becomes dangerous. Not dramatic, not obvious, dangerous. The reports around Ferrari's 2026 car pointed to a power unit weakness compared with Mercedes, especially in raw output and efficiency. In simple terms, Ferrari appeared to be losing too much performance where the car needed to breathe freely. On the straights, at high speed, in the moments when the driver cannot hide behind bravery. Because courage helps in a braking zone. Courage helps when the car is on the edge through a corner. But on a straight, courage has nowhere to go. The driver presses the throttle. The car either gives him the speed or it does not. And if it does not, everyone can see it. That is why the Austrian result cut so deeply. Hamilton could still do Hamilton things. He could still manage the race. He could still read the situation. He could still place the car with intelligence. But once Ferrari's weakness began to show, the fight changed. It was no longer driver against driver. It was Hamilton against the limits of the machine. And this is where the so-called shocking truth begins to take shape. Ferrari's issue was not described as a simple engine failure. It was linked to something much more complex and much harder to solve quickly. An overly optimistic design direction around the combustion chamber. That phrase sounds cold. It sounds like something only engineers should care about, but its meaning is brutal. Ferrari may have believed the engine could create and manage energy more efficiently than it actually could. Think of it like building a house and assuming the walls will hold more weight than they really can. At first, everything looks fine. The rooms are beautiful. The lights turn on. People walk through the door and believe the house is strong. But the moment pressure builds, the weakness does not appear in one dramatic collapse. It appears in cracks. One here, one there. A door that does not close properly. A floor that begins to shift. That is what a design miscalculation can become in Formula One. Not one obvious disaster. 1,000 little compromises. And every compromise costs lap time. Ferrari's power unit problem was not just about being slower in a straight line. It was about what that weakness forced the team to do everywhere else. If the engine is harder to manage thermally, cooling becomes more important. If cooling becomes more important, the bodywork may need compromises. If the bodywork is compromised, aerodynamic efficiency can suffer. If aerodynamic efficiency suffers, the car needs more from the tires. If the tires suffer, strategy becomes harder. And suddenly, what looked like an engine story becomes the entire race. That is the part casual fans often miss. Formula One problems rarely stay in one box. They spread. A power unit weakness becomes a tire problem. A tire problem becomes a strategy problem. A strategy problem becomes a radio problem. A radio problem becomes a driver frustration story. And before anyone knows it, the whole world is asking why Hamilton sounds tense when the original issue may have started deep inside the car months earlier. That is why the engineer drama becomes more than gossip. Because the race engineer is the person forced to translate all of those hidden compromises into simple instructions while the driver is doing more than 200 miles per hour. Save energy, manage temperatures, protect the tires, use the battery later, hold position, do not overuse the car. Those commands may sound normal, but to a champion, they can feel like chains. Because Hamilton did not come to Ferrari to hear how much he needed to protect. He came to Ferrari to attack. And Austria did not give him that freedom. The warning had already appeared earlier in the season. At Miami, post-race analysis pointed to an energy deployment issue in Ferrari's hybrid system. The electrical assistance appeared to fade before the end of long straights, leaving the car exposed when it should have been strongest. That detail matters because modern Formula One cars use electrical energy like a second punch. The engine gives one part of the power. The battery gives another. When both arrive together, the car launches down the straight with full force. But if the battery help disappears too early, the car suddenly feels like it has lost a weapon before the fight is over.